Welcome to the Law School Insider, where we have conversations with students, lawyers, and employers.
Succeeding in law school is something that you must prepare for, not only before you begin, but throughout your law school journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. I am your host, Dr. Christopher Lewis, and I will draw from my over 20 years of experience in the college admission field, as well as bring forth the experiences of others as we delve deeper into the issues. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Law School Insider, a podcast brought to you by Western Michigan University Cooley Law School. So excited to have you back again this week. I'm Dr. Christopher Lewis, your host, and today we are talking about a topic that we haven't talked about yet on the show, but I'm really excited to be able to talk about it. We're going to be talking about storytelling and the importance of being able to be a good storyteller as a lawyer. And we have a returning guest. We have Nelson Miller, who is the Associate Dean at the Grand Rapids campus at Western Michigan University Cooley Law School. If you've been listening for a while, you know that he's joined us and gave some amazing insight into getting in law school, getting through law school, and we always love having him on the show. So, Dean Miller, thanks so much for joining us again this week.
It's good to be here, Dr. Lewis.
It is our pleasure having you back, and I was really excited to be able to have you back to talk about storytelling because I had seen that at your campus that just recently a number of different workshops had started on this specific topic. So to step back, and before we talk about specifically these workshops, why is storytelling so important for lawyers?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it was actually one of our graduates who brought it to our attention. She calls storytelling her sacred task, and I really appreciate her insight. She happens to do federal public defense or federal defense in criminal matters, and she sees her responsibility, her number one responsibility, as humanizing her clients. The criminal justice system can be a significant challenge, terrible challenge really for those who find themselves defendants in the system, and you tend to be treated as a number, frankly. And her job, she sees her calling really as humanizing those clients so that people understand why they acted perhaps as they did, just treating them as humans in the system. Storytelling is her insight into that, sort of her entree into being effective in representing her clients in very significant matters.
Now, when somebody first hears the word storytelling, they might think of a fable, they might think of fiction, they may think of the things that they read for pleasure. And how do we change that in our minds to being able to be a storyteller as a lawyer versus what you may read or what we may have grown up with?
Absolutely, a very important question. In our titling this series of workshops, a series of workshops on storytelling, we're in no sense meaning to imply that lawyers make things up. They certainly don't. And the other side, whomever that may be, whether it's a federal prosecutor or in civil litigation, a plaintiff or defendant party, will ensure that no lawyer misrepresents any facts. And of course, we have conduct rules that prohibit that as well. But the reason that we think about storytelling as an important skill is because when you meet with a client, they're pretty effective usually at telling a part of their story, their own experience, and your ability as a lawyer to communicate that to others in a compelling way is a storytelling skill. But the story is often larger than what a client conveys. You often get only sort of half the story, only a part of the perspective from a client. And so it's very important for lawyers to discover other information that's significant to the story, and then, frankly, to weave it together into an intelligible pattern or theme. And some of that is art. You could select any number of different sort of data points, let's say, from a police report or a medical record or an account given by an eyewitness or your own client's account. But what parts of the story you select to present and then how you present them in what order with what emphasis is the art of storytelling. And again, very important to understanding the humanity of a client, why they acted as they did, and what interests they have in the matter, the very important matters that law presents.
Now, I know that the series of workshops just began, and you've been looking at this for a while now to prepare for that. What are some of the skills that you hope that students that are going through these workshops are going to take out of them? What have you seen so far, and what do you hope in the end that they're going to leave these workshops with?
Sure. We wanted to be sure that we didn't just get together and tell stories. Lawyers, by the way, are very entertaining at that. And what we wanted to ensure is that we had some academic component to the series of workshops. And so we've done a number of things. We have asked speakers primarily lawyers, primarily trial lawyers who have significant experience at the storytelling art. But not just any lawyers, lawyers who have spent some considerable time thinking and writing about writing and storytelling, published fiction authors, lawyers who have written and published stories about the law and the experience of parties and clients in the law. So we've already had the first of our 3 workshops, and we did focus on the inspiration for storytelling, for writing, where it fits in a lawyer's craft, in a lawyer's practice, and how important it is. The second workshop, though, will focus on what is good storytelling, what is effective storytelling, and that has a lot to do with the development of the principal characters. And we all know that maybe just from being readers ourselves, from enjoying reading and enjoying reading novels, for example. But character development is certainly a part of it. The conflict involved in the story, whether it's a novel, a piece of fiction, or in a legal claim or case, very important to understanding the conflict and the effort to resolve it. But then, of course, the organization or plot is very important too. So we're going to spend a second workshop, again, with some special expertise brought in a panel to address those sort of basic storytelling skills. And the third workshop will have to do with publication, which is just a peculiar aspect of scholarship and also of publishing fiction, if that's the interest of any of the participants in the workshop. We are encouraging participants to actually write some fiction, again, just to develop their own sense, our own sense of the storytelling art. And we hope to publish a book out of the series, a book of collected short stories having to do with the law. So it should be a very engaging and maybe, we hope, inspiring exercise this summer.
Now, one of the questions that comes to mind when I think about the way that someone writes a fictional story versus the way that someone writes for the law is very different. And are there similarities? Are there differences? Because I would guess that the way that someone would write a fiction story would be very different than what you as a professor would want when someone was answering a question in one of your courses.
Yeah, and that's what I think has been most interesting, or was maybe most interesting about the first of the workshops. It's actually harder to write good fiction than it is probably to tell an accurate story in the practice of law. Lawyers have usually abundant factual material, and I've mentioned a couple of the things that lawyers might frequently see in practice: police reports, medical records, employment records, financial information or records, but then, of course, eyewitness accounts, statements that you've taken, maybe depositions that you've taken as well. So a lawyer's sort of art in that is examining that wide range of resources and then picking out the material, data points, material points or facts, and assembling it into an effective presentation of the client's experience. In fiction, though, you don't have those resources. Instead, often you're drawing on your own experience. Good fiction is often biographical or even autobiographical. But you may also be relying on research having to do with your fiction story, whether we're talking about John Grisham or Scott Turow, 2 very well-known lawyer authors of fiction. They probably have drawn primarily on their law practices, whether in the criminal justice system in the case of Mr. Turow, or in the civil justice system in the case of Mr. Grisham. They have plenty of material, in a sense, from their own cases, but I'm sure that they also do research. And we've had our panelists talking about the kind of research that fiction writers will also do, even to the point of using, let's say, Google Earth or other things to get a physical view of the places that they're describing in their fiction. And these may be some of the things that the law students and lawyers, we have lawyers participating in the workshops, will draw, that there are other research resources on which lawyers in their own practices may properly draw, such as, again, Google Earth, to actually have a scene inspection of the accident site or the site of the event, whatever the event may be.
Very innovative, because, you wouldn't think of Google Earth as a resource at first. In my mind, I would think that the person would have to be right there to see and experience, and some may do that, but depending on where they are and who they're representing, it may not be possible too. So utilizing those additional resources is definitely important. Now, when students are going through law school, they're having to take these courses that are pretty rote. I mean, you see very similar courses at a lot of different law schools. You've got your torts and contracts and criminal law, very academic-based courses. How does a workshop or a course like this fit into the education of a law student?
The professors who are participating in it, we all have our doctrinal subjects, and usually they're very serious subjects, and we give great attention to those subjects, as do our students. And we certainly want to keep the focus there. But to make the education sort of integrative, to draw together both the doctrinal subject and the skills that they require, and some sense of the insider inspiration as well, a workshop like this can do that for a student, can draw a student out. We're also encouraging students throughout the curriculum to find things, skills that they already have that are pretty strong. And certainly some of the law students who come to law school bring outstanding writing skills, and they may also have actually written fiction or even published fiction. One of the participants in our current workshop has a couple of books out, and they've been quite successful too. They're fiction books, and he's been a significant contributor to the workshop. So we're both trying to preserve and kind of draw on some of the special interests of our students, but also trying to give them kind of an integrative experience that will sort of give them some inspiration and opportunity, again, to draw together many different things that they're trying to do. And in this case, it's working with the law, the stories of the law, and the skill of writing and telling those stories.
Well, Dean Miller, this sounds like an amazing program and definitely one that sets WMU Cooley Law School apart from others, but also allows for students to be able to get a great opportunity to be able to look at law in a completely different way and to be able to think about the law in a completely different way. So I really appreciate you sharing this program with us, sharing your thoughts on storytelling. And I encourage all of you that may be looking at any law school experience, look for ways to become that storyteller for yourself, for your legal career, because no matter what you're going to be doing, you are going to have to be a storyteller in some way. It may not be that you're going to be writing a story and writing a fiction story, but you're going to be telling the story of the clients that you're going to be representing, and that's so important. So, Dean Miller, thanks so much for joining us this week.
And thank you.
Well, that was another great guest this week on the Law School Insider. If you have an interest in being a guest on the show, drop me an email at lawschoolinsider@cooley.edu. And thank you all for listening today, and remember, you have the ability and right to take control of your law school's success. I hope you'll continue listening, creating a plan for success that will prepare you to achieve the dreams that you have set for yourself. Talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. You're on your way to being a law school insider. Please subscribe to stay connected and come back again next time as we speak to more students, lawyers, and employers.